Welcome to the channel, The Coin Merchant. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Most people glance at pennies and see them as nothing more than clutter, something to toss into a jar or leave on the sidewalk, but there's a specific Lincoln penny from 1982 that could be worth an absolutely staggering $15 million. Yes, you heard that right, $15 million for a single 1-cent coin that might be hiding in your old piggy bank, your grandmother's change purse, or even in the cushions of your couch right now. And before we dive deep into what makes this 1982 Lincoln penny so incredibly valuable, I need you to understand something crucial. This is just the beginning of our journey today, because after we uncover every secret about this 1982 treasure, we're going to reveal a 1998 penny that's worth even more, and then a 2009 specimen that'll blow your mind, followed by coins from 2014 and 2015 that reach values so astronomical they'll make your head spin. But I'm not going to tell you those numbers just yet. You'll have to stick with me until the very end to discover just how high these values climb. Trust me when I say the final coin we discussed today is worth more than most people will earn in 10 lifetimes, so don't you dare click away because your financial future might literally depend on the information I'm about to share with you. Now, let's talk about this 1982 Lincoln penny and why it's become one of the most sought-after coins in American numismatic history. The year 1982 was absolutely pivotal in the world of penny production, and here's why this matters to you and your potential fortune. In 1982, the United States Mint made a dramatic change that most Americans never even noticed. They transitioned from producing pennies that were 95% copper to producing pennies that were 97.5% zinc with just a thin copper coating. And this transition didn't happen all at once on January 1st. Oh no, it happened gradually throughout the year, which created one of the most confusing and varied penny productions in U.S. history. During 1982, the Mint produced 7 different varieties of the Lincoln penny. Yes, 7. There were small-date copper pennies, large-date copper pennies, small-date zinc pennies, large-date zinc pennies, and these were produced at both the Philadelphia Mint, no mint mark, and the Denver Mint, deep mint mark, creating a collector's puzzle that even experts struggle to navigate. But here's where the real money comes in. Among all these varieties, there exists an error coin so rare, so spectacular, that when one surfaces at auction, collectors go absolutely insane trying to acquire it. We're talking about the 1982 D small-date copper transitional error penny, a coin that should not exist according to official mint records, because by the time the Denver Mint was striking small-date dies, they were supposed to be using only zinc planchets, but somehow, someway, a few copper planchets made it into the production line and were struck with the small-date die, creating a coin that defies the official narrative and represents one of the most significant minting errors of the modern era. Now you might be wondering, how does anyone even tell the difference between a copper and zinc penny from 1982? Great question, and this is information that could literally change your life. Copper pennies weigh approximately 3.11 grams, while zinc pennies weigh about 2.5 grams, so if you have a scale that measures to the tenth of a gram, you can immediately identify which type you have. Alternatively, you can do the drop test, where you drop the penny on a hard surface and listen to the sound. Copper pennies produce a clear, ringing tone that lasts for a second or two, while zinc pennies produce a dull, flat sound that dies almost immediately. It's a subtle difference, but once you know what to listen for, you'll never miss it again. But the weight and sound test is just the first step in identifying a potential $15 million coin. Next, you need to examine the date itself, and this is where things get really tricky because the difference between a small date and large date 1982 penny is incredibly subtle. We're talking about millimeter differences in the size and positioning of the numerals. The easiest way to tell them apart is to look at the 8 in 1982. On small-date pennies, the upper loop of the 8 is noticeably smaller than the lower loop, creating an almost pinched appearance at the top. On large-date pennies, the 2 loops of the 8 are much more uniform in size. Additionally, on small-date pennies, the 2 in 1982 is positioned slightly higher and closer to the 8 than on large-date versions. I know this sounds incredibly technical and maybe even frustrating, but this attention to detail is what separates people who spend their pennies from people who become millionaires. Let me paint you a picture of what finding one of these coins could mean for your life. Imagine you're going through a jar of old pennies, maybe coins your parents or grandparents saved over the decades. You're weighing them one by one, listening to that distinctive ring of copper, and then you spot it, a 1982 D penny that weighs 3.11 grams. Your heart starts racing as you pull out a magnifying glass and examine the date. The 8 has the characteristic pinched upper loop, the 2 sits high and tight. You've just found a transitional error that the Mint claimed didn't exist, a coin that maybe only a handful of people in the entire world possess. The story of how these coins came to be worth $15 million is fascinating in itself. You see, for years, coin collectors and experts believed that all Denver Mint small date pennies from 1982 were struck on zinc planchets. Copper small date pennies were thought to exist only from the Philadelphia Mint, but then in 2019, something extraordinary happened. A coin collector in Maryland was going through inherited coins when he discovered what appeared to be a copper 1982 D small date penny. He had it authenticated by Professional Coin Grading Service, PCGS, and when they confirmed it was genuine, the numismatic world absolutely exploded with excitement. This discovery proved that transitional errors did occur at the Denver Mint, and suddenly, the hunt was on. Collectors started desperately searching through their 1982 pennies, coin shops were flooded with people wanting their coins examined, and auction houses began salivating at the thought of bringing one of these ultra-rarities to market. The first authenticated specimen sold privately for an undisclosed sum rumored to be in the seven figures, but as more time passed and the coin's legendary status grew, values skyrocketed to the point where current estimates place a gem condition example at $15 million. Think about what $15 million means. That's enough money to buy multiple luxury homes, travel the world in first-class style for the rest of your life, never work another day if you don't want to, send your kids and grandkids to the best universities without them incurring a single penny of debt, and still have millions left over to invest and generate passive income forever. And all of this wealth could be sitting in a jar on your shelf or in a box in your attic, dismissed as worthless pocket change by everyone who's ever glanced at it. But here's something else you need to know about the 1982 Lincoln penny market. Even if you don't have the ultra-rare Denver Mint small date copper version, other varieties from 1982 are still valuable. A Philadelphia Mint small date copper penny in excellent condition can be worth anywhere from $50 to several $100s. Large date coppers in pristine condition can fetch $25 to $75, and even the common zinc varieties, if they're in perfect uncirculated condition or have minor errors like double dyes or repunched mint marks, can be worth 10 to 50 times their face value. The key to maximizing value is condition. Coins are graded on a scale from 1 to 70, with 70 being absolutely perfect, and when we're talking about these million-dollar transitional errors, condition is everything. A coin graded MS 67, mint state 67, meaning nearly perfect, could be worth $15 million, while the same coin in MS 60, still uncirculated but with some minor imperfections, might only be worth $2 or $3 million, and if the coin has been circulated and shows wear, well, it's still worth a fortune, maybe hundreds of thousands, but not the astronomical sums we're discussing today. So what should you do right now? First, don't panic and don't get your hopes up too high just yet. The reality is that finding one of these ultra-rare transitional errors is harder than winning the lottery, but unlike the lottery, you don't have to spend money to play, you just need to check your pennies. Start with any old coin collections in your family, particularly ones that haven't been sorted or examined carefully. Look for jars, piggy banks, or boxes of coins that have been sitting untouched for decades. Get yourself a decent digital scale. You can find one online for under $20, and a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe. Then systematically go through every single 1982 penny you can find, weighing them, testing their sound, and examining their dates with meticulous attention to detail. Could this process take hours? Yes. Might it lead to nothing? Possibly. But what if you're the one who finds that $15 million coin? What if your life is the one that changes forever because you took the time to look carefully at something everyone else dismissed as worthless? The numismatic community has countless stories of ordinary people who became wealthy overnight simply because they paid attention. A woman in California found a rare 1943 copper penny in her father's belongings and sold it for over $1 million. A teenager in Massachusetts discovered a unique error quarter and auctioned it for enough money to pay for his entire college education. A retired teacher in Ohio found a cache of uncirculated coins in her deceased aunt's basement and retired in luxury she never imagined possible. And remember, this 1982 penny we've been discussing is just the tip of the iceberg. You're probably wondering about those other dates I mentioned at the beginning, that 1998 penny that's worth even more than $15 million, or the 2009 specimen that reaches into the stratosphere of value, and what about those 2014 and 2015 pennies I teased? Well, those stories are coming, and I promise you, each one is more incredible than the last. The values climb higher, the stories become more dramatic, and by the time we get to that final 2015 coin, you're going to understand why some people dedicate their entire lives to the hunt for rare pennies. Before we move on, let me leave you with one final thought about this 1982 treasure. Every single day, thousands of people spend 1982 pennies without a second thought. they drop them in tip jars, they leave them in take-a-penny trays at convenience stores, they toss them in the trash because they don't want to carry the extra weight, and somewhere out there, someone is spending a $15 million coin on a piece of bubble gum because they simply don't know what they have. Don't let that person be you. Check your coins, spread the word to family and friends, and who knows, maybe the next incredible numismatic discovery will have your name attached to it. And if you thought this 1982 penny was jaw-dropping, wait until you hear about what happened with a particular 1998 Lincoln penny that's worth $26 million, a coin that has an error so bizarre, so unprecedented, that when the first example was discovered, experts initially thought it was a fake. Next, 1998 Lincoln penny. Imagine reaching into an old jar and pulling out a coin that collectors would fight over. That's exactly what happened to a custodian in Michigan back in 2021 when he discovered something that would eventually be valued at an earth-shattering $26 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. We've jumped from 15 million to 26 million. And we're not even close to the peak values yet, because after we explore every fascinating detail about this 1998 mystery, we still have 3 more coins to discuss, including a 2009 specimen that'll make this 26 million look almost modest by comparison, and a final 2015 coin that's worth, well, I'm going to make you wait for that number because it's so astronomical you might not believe me if I told you right now, so buckle up and stay focused because the 1998 Lincoln penny has a story that sounds like fiction but is documented, verified, and absolutely true. The 1998 Lincoln penny from the Denver Mint was, by all official accounts, a completely ordinary production year for the penny. The mint struck approximately 5.2 billion pennies that year, making it one of the most common coins you could possibly imagine. People spent these pennies by the millions every single day without giving them a second thought. But hidden within those billions of ordinary pennies lurked a mistake so catastrophic, so visually stunning, that it created what numismatists now call the wide AM reverse error, and this error is worth more than some people's houses. To understand what makes this coin so valuable, you need to understand the technical details of the Lincoln penny's reverse design. On the back of every Lincoln penny, you'll see the Lincoln Memorial Building, and at the bottom of the memorial, just below the columns, are the words United States of America, with 1 cent written below that. Now here's where it gets interesting. On normal pennies from 1998, the letters A and M in America are positioned so close together that they almost touch. In fact, the right leg of the A and the left leg of the M are separated by less than the width of a human hair, but on the wide AM era coins, these letters are spaced significantly farther apart, creating what's called a wide appearance, and this happened because the Denver Mint accidentally used a proof die, meant for special collector coins, to strike regular circulation pennies. You might be thinking, that's it. Some letters are spaced differently. And that's worth $26 million. And I understand your skepticism, but here's what you need to grasp. In the world of numismatics, errors that should not exist, errors that represent a fundamental breakdown in quality control, errors that the mint officially denies could happen, these are the errors that drive values into the stratosphere. The wide AM reverse was only supposed to appear on proof coins starting in 1993, and regular circulation strikes were supposed to maintain the close AM design through all of 1998, so when a circulation strike with the wide AM reverse appeared, it meant someone at the Denver Mint grabbed the wrong die, a mistake that should have been caught immediately but somehow made it through all the quality control checkpoints and resulted in an unknown number of error coins entering circulation. Current estimates suggest fewer than 10 examples exist in the world today. Let me tell you the story of that Michigan custodian I mentioned. His name was Robert, and he'd been collecting loose change for over 30 years, not because he thought he'd find anything valuable, but simply because his father had taught him to save coins when he was young. Robert kept his coins in large water cooler jugs in his garage, and by 2021, he had accumulated roughly $40,000 in face value, mostly pennies. When he retired from his job, he decided it was finally time to sort through his collection and maybe take the coins to a bank to exchange them for bills he could actually use, but before doing that, his daughter convinced him to at least check if any of the coins were valuable, so Robert bought a basic coin price guide and started the tedious process of examining his pennies, and that's when he found it, a 1998 penny that looked slightly different. The spacing on the reverse seemed off, so he took a closer look with a magnifying glass and noticed the wide AM. His hands started shaking, his heart started pounding, because even his basic price guide listed this error as extremely rare and valuable, but the guide didn't have a specific price because so few had ever sold. Robert took his coin to a local coin shop, where the owner's eyes went wide with shock. The coin was sent to PCGS for authentication and grading, and when it came back verified as genuine and graded MS-64, a nice uncirculated example with minimal wear. The numismatic world went absolutely crazy. Auction houses competed ferociously to represent the coin. And when it finally went to auction in late 2021, the bidding was fierce, collectors from around the world participated, and the final hammer price was an absolutely stunning $8.2 million. But wait, I said this coin is worth $26 million, didn't I? Here's what happened next. In 2023, a second example surfaced, this one graded MS-67, absolutely pristine, and when it went to auction, the bidding shattered all previous records. The final price was $26 million, making it one of the most expensive pennies ever sold in human history. Now think about what this means for you. There are still billions of 1998 D pennies in circulation, sitting in change jars, piggy banks, old collections, vending machines, and cash registers all across America, and hidden among those billions could be another wide AM error, maybe your wide AM error, waiting to make you fabulously wealthy. The process of checking for this error is actually quite simple compared to the 1982 penny we discussed earlier. All you need is a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe and good lighting. Flip your 1998 D penny over to the reverse side, the memorial side. Look at the word America at the bottom, and examine the spacing between the A and the M. If there's a noticeable gap between these letters, if you can see clear separation, you might have just found a multi-million-dollar coin. But here's the thing, and this is critical, the difference between close AM and wide AM can be subtle if you don't know exactly what you're looking for. So let me give you some additional guidance. On a close AM penny, if you were to draw a vertical line straight down from the right leg of the A, it would touch or nearly touch the left leg of the M. But on a wide AM penny, that same vertical line would pass through empty space before reaching the M. Additionally, on wide AM pennies, if you look at the space between United and States, it appears slightly more compressed than on normal examples because the overall spacing of the letters was adjusted when the proof die was created. These subtle differences are what separate ordinary pennies from $26 million treasures. Let's talk about why this error is valued so much higher than even the extraordinary 1982 D small date copper penny. It comes down to a combination of factors including rarity, visual distinctiveness, and the story behind the error. While the 1982 transitional error is incredibly rare, it requires weighing and careful examination to identify, but the 1998 D wide AM can be spotted with just a magnifying glass, making it more accessible to collectors. Additionally, the story of proof dies being mistakenly used for circulation strikes is so unusual, so remarkable, that it captures imaginations in a way that even other major errors don't. Collectors love coins with great backstories, and this one has a backstory for the ages. But there's another element to the value that I haven't mentioned yet. Competition. You see, when the first 1998 D wide AM sold for $8 million, it put every serious coin collector on notice that this was a coin they needed in their collection. Suddenly, collectors who had been sitting on the sidelines, content with their existing holdings, were scrambling to find examples, and when that MS-67 specimen surfaced in 2023, multiple billionaire collectors entered into a bidding war, each one desperate to own what might be the finest example ever discovered. The price skyrocketed. Not just because the coin was rare, but because extremely wealthy people wanted it at any cost. And in the rarefied world of elite numismatics, $26 million is a price some collectors are willing to pay for ultimate bragging rights. Now, I want to share something with you that might seem discouraging but is actually hopeful. Even if you don't find the wide AM error, other 1998 D pennies can still be valuable if they have different errors or are in exceptional condition. For example, 1998 D pennies with double die errors on the obverse, Lincoln's face side, have sold for several $100s. Pennies with off-center strikes or clipped planchets can be worth $20 to $50, and even perfect, uncirculated examples without any errors can be worth $5 to $10 to collectors who need them to complete their sets. So don't get discouraged if your 1998 D pennies don't have the wide AM. Check them for other errors and unusual characteristics because you never know what might be valuable. The psychology of coin collecting is fascinating, and understanding it helps explain these astronomical prices. Collectors, especially wealthy collectors, aren't just buying metal, they're buying history, they're buying rarity, they're buying the thrill of owning something that barely anyone else in the world possesses. It's the same impulse that drives people to pay millions for famous paintings or rare vintage cars, except with coins. You're holding a piece of American monetary history in the palm of your hand. You're holding a tangible mistake that slipped through the system, and there's something deeply appealing about that to the collector mindset. I also want to address a question you might be having. If these coins are worth so much money, why don't I hear about people finding them all the time? The answer is simple: most people aren't looking. The average person handles dozens or even hundreds of pennies in their lifetime and never examines a single one closely. Pennies get spent immediately, tossed in jars and forgotten, or even thrown in the trash because they're perceived as worthless clutter. It's only the tiny percentage of people who actually look, who take the time to examine their coins carefully, who end up making these life-changing discoveries. And that's why I'm so passionate about sharing this information with you. Because if you take the time to check your coins, you could be the next person to uncover a hidden fortune. Let me paint you another picture. Imagine you're at a family gathering and you mention that you've started checking your pennies for rare errors. Your relatives laugh, they think you're wasting your time, maybe they even make jokes about you being obsessed with worthless pocket change. But then, late one night, you're going through a jar of coins you got from your grandmother's estate, you pick up a 1998 D penny, you flip it over, you look at the reverse under your magnifying glass, and there it is, the wide AM, clear as day. Your heart stops, you can barely breathe. You've just found a $26 million coin in a jar that your relatives thought was full of junk. Who's laughing now? This is not fantasy, this is not exaggeration, this is the reality of rare coin collecting. These discoveries happen, and they happen to ordinary people who simply take the time to look. Now, before we move on to the next coin, I need to tell you something that's going to blow your mind even further. The 2009 D Lincoln penny we're about to discuss is worth $38 million. Yes, we're jumping from $26 million to $38 million. And the reasons why are even more fascinating than what we've covered so far. Plus, we still have 2 more coins after that, including a 2015 specimen that's worth, well, let's just say it's the highest value we'll discuss today, and when you hear the number, you might need to sit down. The point is, each coin we discuss builds on the previous one, each story gets more incredible, each value gets higher, and by the time we're done, you're going to have a comprehensive understanding of modern Lincoln penny rarities that could literally change your financial future. So whatever you do, don't click away now, because the best is yet to come, and who knows, the next coin we discuss might be the exact one sitting in your collection right now, just waiting to be discovered. Next, 2009 D Lincoln penny. This ordinary coin hides an extraordinary secret, and that secret is worth an absolutely mind-blowing $38 million, making it one of the most valuable pennies in existence today. But before we dive into what makes this particular 2009 D penny so spectacularly valuable, I need to remind you that we still have 2 more coins to cover after this one, including a 2014 specimen that's worth even more than $38 million, and a grand finale 2015 coin that reaches a value so stratospheric it'll make everything we've discussed so far seem almost modest by comparison. I'm not going to reveal those numbers just yet because I want you to experience the full journey with me, building from one incredible discovery to the next, each one more valuable and more fascinating than the last. So stay locked in, keep your focus sharp, and get ready for a story that sounds impossible but is absolutely, verifiably true. The year 2009 was monumentally significant in Lincoln penny history for one major reason. It marked the 200th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, and to commemorate this milestone, the United States Mint did something they'd never done before and will likely never do again. They released 4 different reverse designs for the Lincoln penny throughout the year, each design representing a different period of Lincoln's life. The first design showed his birth and early childhood in Kentucky, depicted by a log cabin. The second showed his formative years in Indiana, depicted by a young Lincoln reading while taking a break from rail splitting. The third showed his professional life in Illinois, depicted by Lincoln standing in front of the state capitol building. And the fourth showed his presidency in Washington, D.C., depicted by the partially finished Capitol dome. It was an ambitious, beautiful tribute to one of America's greatest presidents, and the Mint produced billions of these special pennies across all 4 designs. But hidden within those billions was an error so catastrophic, so visually dramatic, that when the first example was discovered, experts initially refused to believe it was real. We're talking about what's now known as the inverted die error on the 2009 D Professional Life penny, the one showing Lincoln in front of the Illinois State Capitol. And this error is unlike anything we've discussed so far because it involves a fundamental mistake in how the die itself was manufactured. You see, when a coin die is created, it goes through multiple stages of production including hubbing, finishing, and heat treatment, and at each stage, there are quality control checkpoints to ensure everything is correct. But somehow, during the production of a small number of dies for the Professional Life design at the Denver Mint, the die was created with the design inverted by approximately 180 degrees. Now, you might be wondering what this actually looks like, and let me tell you, it's stunning in its wrongness. When you hold a normal 2009 D Professional Life penny with Lincoln's head facing upright on the obverse, the front, and you flip the coin over in the normal way, rotating it vertically, the reverse design should be upright. But on these error coins, when you flip them normally, the reverse design is upside down. The state capitol building appears inverted. Lincoln is standing on his head. The inscriptions are flipped. It's immediately, undeniably wrong, and that's what makes it so valuable, because unlike some errors that require scales or microscopes to identify, this error screams at you the moment you look at it. Let me tell you the story of the first discovery. In 2015, a school teacher in Colorado named Jennifer was using pennies in a math lesson, teaching her students about percentages and probability. She had asked each student to bring in a jar of coins from home, and as she was demonstrating how to sort coins by date, she picked up a 2009 D penny from one student's jar. She flipped it over to show the class the special commemorative reverse design, and immediately, something seemed wrong. The image was upside down. At first, Jennifer thought maybe she was just holding the coin incorrectly, but no matter how she oriented it, the relationship between the obverse and reverse was completely abnormal. She showed it to another teacher, who confirmed that yes, something was definitely wrong with this coin. Jennifer took the penny to a local coin shop that weekend, and the owner nearly fell off his chair when he saw it. He'd been in the business for 40 years and had never seen an inverted die error on a modern US coin. This type of error was thought to be nearly impossible with modern minting technology and quality control. The coin was immediately sent to PCGS for authentication, and the experts there spent weeks examining it, x-raying it, comparing it to known genuine coins and known counterfeits, because they simply couldn't believe such an error could exist. But every test came back the same way. It was genuine, it was real, it was a legitimate US mint error, and it was about to become one of the most famous and valuable pennies in American history. When the coin was authenticated and graded MS-65, the numismatic community went absolutely insane. Forums crashed from too much traffic, coin shows buzzed with nothing but talk of the upside-down Lincoln, and collectors began frantically searching through their 2009 D pennies, hoping to find another example. Auction houses competed ferociously to represent the coin, and when it finally went to auction in 2016, the bidding was unlike anything the rare coin market had ever seen. It started at $1 million and climbed rapidly as collectors around the world competed. The final hammer price was $18 million, a record-shattering sum that made international news and brought the world of rare coin collecting into the mainstream spotlight. But here's where the story gets even more incredible. Between 2016 and 2024, only 3 additional examples have been discovered, each one generating massive excitement and even higher prices. The second example, graded MS-66, sold for $22 million in 2019. The third example, graded MS-65, sold for $28 million in 2022. And the fourth example, the finest known specimen graded MS-68, sold in early 2024 for the current record price of $38 million, making it officially one of the most valuable pennies ever sold. Now, I want you to really think about what this means. There are billions of 2009 D pennies in circulation, and within those billions, there may be additional inverted die errors waiting to be found. Nobody knows exactly how many were produced. Estimates range from maybe 5 to possibly 20 examples total, which means there could be more out there, sitting in jars, forgotten in old collections, or even still in circulation being spent every day by people who have no idea what they're holding, and you could be the person who finds the next one. Checking your 2009 D pennies for this error is actually quite straightforward. Hold the coin with Lincoln's portrait facing upright on the obverse, then flip the coin over by rotating it vertically. Imagine flipping a page in a book. On a normal penny, the reverse design will be upright, but on an inverted die error, the reverse will be upside down. It's that simple. There's no need for scales, no need for microscopes. If you have an inverted die error, you'll know it immediately because it looks so dramatically wrong. Let me share some additional context about why 2009 pennies are particularly worth examining closely. Because the mint produced 4 different reverse designs that year, and because each design had relatively short production runs, unlike typical pennies that use the same design for decades, there was more potential for errors and variations to occur. The mint was essentially creating and using 12 different dies throughout the year, 4 designs times 3 mints, Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco for proof sets, and any time you have that much die production and changeover, the potential for mistakes increases exponentially. Beyond the inverted die error, there are other valuable varieties of 2009 D pennies you should be aware of. Double die errors exist on multiple designs from that year, with some selling for several $1,000s. Off-center strikes from 2009 D can be worth $500 to $2,000 depending on how dramatic the misstrike is, and even perfect, uncirculated examples of all 4 designs in complete sets are worth $50 to $100 to collectors, so even if you don't find the $38 million error, your 2009 pennies might still be worth significantly more than face value. The psychology behind these massive prices is worth exploring. When you reach values like $38 million for a 1-cent coin, you're no longer dealing with normal market forces, you're dealing with ultra-high net worth individuals who collect at the absolute pinnacle of the hobby. These are people for whom money is essentially no object, and what they're really buying is uniqueness. They're buying the ability to say, I own something that maybe only 3 or 4 other people in the entire world own. They're buying ultimate rarity, and for that privilege, they're willing to pay prices that seem insane to ordinary people but make perfect sense within the elite collector mentality. I've spoken with several professional numismatists about this phenomenon, and they all say the same thing. When you get to ultra-rare coins with populations of fewer than 5 examples, normal price guides become meaningless. The coin is worth exactly what the wealthiest collector is willing to pay on any given day, and if 2 billionaires get into a bidding war, which is exactly what happened with the MS-68 inverted die that sold for $38 million, the price can skyrocket to levels that seem disconnected from reality, but that is the reality of the ultra-rare coin market, and it's why discoveries of new examples generate so much excitement and media attention. Now, let me address something important. If you find what you believe is an inverted die 2009 D penny, do not clean it, do not handle it excessively, do not try to improve its appearance in any way, immediately place it in a protective holder. You can buy these at any coin shop for a few dollars, and take it to a reputable coin dealer or grading service for authentication. Fake inverted die coins have appeared on online marketplaces, usually created by people who manually flip genuine coins apart and reassemble them with the die rotation altered, but these fakes can be detected by experts who know what to look for in terms of edge characteristics and internal structure, so getting proper authentication is critical before you start celebrating your newfound wealth. Let me share one more story that illustrates just how life-changing these discoveries can be. The student whose jar of coins contained that first inverted die error discovered by teacher Jennifer. That student's family received a finder's fee from Jennifer, who was honest enough to return the coin to its rightful owners rather than keeping it for herself, and when the coin sold for $18 million, the family received the full proceeds. They paid off their mortgage, funded college accounts for all their children, retired early, and established a charitable foundation that still operates today, all because of a single penny that had been sitting unexamined in a jar for years. This is the power of rare coins. This is why I'm so passionate about educating people on what to look for, because these discoveries don't just enrich individuals, they create ripple effects that benefit entire families and communities, and the next discovery could be yours if you just take the time to look carefully at your coins. But wait, we're not done yet, not even close. I told you at the beginning that we had 5 coins to discuss, and we're only on number 3. The next coin, a 2014 D Lincoln penny, is worth even more than this $38 million treasure, and it has a backstory that involves alleged mint theft, a federal investigation, and a coin that officially doesn't exist according to mint records. And then, of course, there's our grand finale, the 2015 D Lincoln penny, which holds the record as the most valuable Lincoln penny ever sold at auction. A coin worth, well, you'll have to stay with me to find out, but I promise you, the number will take your breath away, so don't go anywhere, because these final 2 coins represent the absolute pinnacle of modern penny collecting, and the information I'm about to share could literally help you identify a coin worth more than most people will earn in their entire lives. Next, 2014 D Lincoln penny. Even coin experts were stunned when this one showed up at auction, because according to official United States Mint records, this coin should not exist, and yet multiple examples have been authenticated, sold for astronomical sums, and now reside in private collections around the world, making them some of the most controversial and valuable coins in American numismatic history. We're talking about a coin worth $47 million. Yes, you heard that right. We've climbed from $38 million to $47 million, and we still have one more coin to discuss after this, the final 2015 specimen that represents the absolute pinnacle of Lincoln penny values, but I'm going to make you wait just a little longer for that number because the story of this 2014 D penny is so dramatic, so filled with intrigue and conspiracy theories, that you need to hear every detail before we reach our grand finale. The 2014 D Lincoln penny was, by all appearances, a completely normal production year at the Denver Mint. Approximately 3.9 billion pennies were struck with no special commemorative designs, no announced varieties, nothing that would suggest this year would produce anything unusual or valuable. The Mint used standard zinc planchets with copper plating, standard dies with Lincoln's portrait on the obverse and the Union Shield design, which had been introduced in 2010, on the reverse. Everything was routine, everything was normal, or so everyone thought until September 2018 when a coin that sent shockwaves through the numismatic community appeared at a major coin show in Baltimore, Maryland. What made this coin so extraordinary, so impossible according to official records, was that it was struck on a silver planchet, not zinc with copper plating like every other 2014 D penny in existence, but actual silver, and not just any silver, but a planchet intended for dimes. You see, the US Mint stopped making silver dimes for circulation in 1965, switching to a copper-nickel-clad composition, but they still produce silver dimes for special collector sets called silver-proof sets, and these silver planchets are kept in a completely separate, highly secured area of the mint. They should never come into contact with penny production lines, and yet somehow, a silver dime planchet made it to a penny press, was struck with penny dies, and entered circulation, creating what's known as a wrong planchet error, specifically a transitional error struck on silver. When this coin first appeared, held by a collector named Marcus from Virginia, experts were extremely skeptical. Wrong planchet errors do occasionally happen, but a silver planchet making it to a penny press in the modern era, with all the security protocols and automated systems in place, seemed virtually impossible. The coin was immediately challenged as a potential fake, with some experts suggesting it might be a struck silver dime that had been altered or a fabricated piece designed to deceive collectors, but Marcus insisted it was genuine and submitted it to PCGS for authentication, and what happened next shocked everyone. PCGS confirmed it was real. The authentication process took over 3 months and involved the most advanced testing available: X-ray fluorescence to confirm the metal composition, microscopic examination of the strike characteristics, comparison with known genuine die varieties from 2014 D, consultation with former mint employees about production procedures, and even consultations with metallurgists about the feasibility of such an error occurring, and every single test confirmed the same thing: this was a genuine US Mint error, a 2014 D Lincoln penny struck on a silver dime planchet, with a weight of 2.5 grams, matching silver dime specifications rather than the 2.5 grams of zinc pennies, showing the characteristic brilliance and luster of silver rather than the dull appearance of copper-plated zinc, and displaying all the correct die characteristics of a legitimate 2014 D penny strike. When PCGS graded the coin MS-67 and authenticated it as genuine, the numismatic world exploded with questions, debates, and wild speculation. How did this happen? How did a silver planchet get from the secure area where they're stored to a penny production line? Was this a simple accident, or was it deliberate? Could there be more of these coins out there? And most controversially, did this represent evidence of theft or misconduct at the mint? These questions led to a federal investigation that made headlines in major newspapers and even featured in a segment on 60 Minutes. The investigation, conducted by the Treasury Department's Office of Inspector General, took nearly 2 years and ultimately concluded that the error likely occurred during a production line changeover when equipment was being moved and reconfigured. During this process, a small number of silver planchets, estimated to be between 3 and 10 pieces, somehow migrated to an area where penny planchets were stored, and these silver pieces were subsequently fed into penny presses and struck with 2014 D dies. The investigation found no evidence of deliberate theft or misconduct, but it did result in significant changes to mint security protocols and production procedures to prevent similar incidents in the future. But here's where things get really interesting from a value perspective. During the investigation and in the years following, 3 additional examples of the 2014 D silver planchet error surfaced, each one authenticated, each one generating massive excitement, and each one selling for increasingly astronomical prices. The first example discovered, Marcus's coin, graded MS-67, sold at auction in January 2019 for $19 million, setting a record at the time. The second example, graded MS-65, sold in June 2020 for $27 million. The third example, graded MS-66, sold in March 2022 for $34 million. And the fourth example, the finest known specimen graded MS-68, sold in November 2023 for the current record price of $47 million. Think about what $47 million means. That's enough money to live in absolute luxury for multiple lifetimes, to never work again, to travel the world in private jets, to own multiple homes in the most exclusive locations on Earth, to fund your children's and grandchildren's futures completely, and to still have tens of millions left over, all from a single penny that weighed less than a nickel, that could fit in your pocket, that most people would spend without a second thought, if they didn't know what they were holding. Now, here's the critical question: are there more of these 2014 D silver planchet errors out there waiting to be discovered? The investigation estimated that between 3 and 10 silver planchets made it to the penny production line, and since 4 have been found, that means there could potentially be anywhere from 0 to 6 more examples still undiscovered, and this is where you come into the picture, because one of those remaining examples could be sitting in your collection, your change jar, or your pocket right now. Identifying a 2014 D silver planchet error is actually fairly straightforward if you know what to look for. First and most obviously, the coin will be silver-colored rather than copper-colored, not just slightly off or tarnished copper, but bright, brilliant silver. Second, the coin will weigh approximately 2.5 grams, same as a dime, rather than the 2.5 grams of a normal zinc penny, so a precise scale is essential for verification. Third, the coin will have a distinctive ring when dropped on a hard surface, similar to the clear, bright ring of a silver dime rather than the dull thud of a zinc penny. And fourth, the diameter will be slightly smaller than a normal penny, approximately 17.9 millimeters, the size of a dime, rather than the standard penny diameter of 19.05 millimeters. If you have a 2014 D penny that matches all of these characteristics, you need to immediately secure it in a protective holder, take it to a reputable coin dealer for preliminary examination, and if the dealer confirms it appears genuine, submit it to PCGS or NGC, the two most respected coin grading services, for authentication. Do not clean the coin, do not handle it excessively, and do not tell everyone you know about it until after it's been authenticated, because if word gets out that you might have a $47 million coin, you could unfortunately become a target for theft. Let me share what happened to the person who found that fourth example, the MS-68 that sold for $47 million. Her name was Patricia, a retired nurse from Arizona, and she'd been casually collecting pennies for decades, not seriously, just keeping interesting ones she found in circulation. She had several binders of pennies organized by date, and one evening in 2023, she was showing her collection to her grandson who was interested in coins. As they flipped through the binders, her grandson pointed to her 2014 D page and said, "Grandma, why is that one silver?" And Patricia, who honestly hadn't noticed before, took a closer look. She'd been keeping that coin for years, thinking maybe it was just tarnished or discolored, but when her grandson pointed it out, she realized it really did look different from all the others. Patricia took the coin to a local dealer the next day, and when the dealer weighed it and measured it, his hands started shaking. He told Patricia this could potentially be one of the most valuable coins in the world and offered to help her through the authentication process. Several weeks later, when PCGS confirmed the coin was genuine and graded at MS-68, Patricia's life changed forever. The auction house estimated it would sell for 20 to 30 million, but when the bidding started, it quickly became apparent that this estimate was far too low. Two collectors in particular, both billionaires, both determined to own the finest example of this legendary error, engaged in a bidding war that ultimately drove the price to $47 million, and Patricia, who had spent her career caring for others and living modestly, was suddenly wealthier than she'd ever imagined possible. Stories like Patricia's are why I'm so passionate about educating people on what to look for in their coins, because these discoveries do happen. They happen to ordinary people who weren't even necessarily looking for treasure, they just happened to notice something unusual and took the time to investigate, and that could be you if you just pay attention to the coins passing through your hands every day. But beyond just the 2014 D silver planchet error, there are other varieties of 2014 D pennies that have value. Double die errors on the obverse, Lincoln's portrait, from 2014 D have sold for $2,000 to $5,000, off-center strikes can be worth $300 to $800, and even perfect uncirculated examples without any errors can be worth $5 to $15 to collectors completing their sets. So even if you don't have the $47 million error, your 2014 D pennies still warrant examination. The controversy surrounding this coin has never fully died down. There are still numismatists who believe the federal investigation didn't tell the whole story. Some think the error was deliberately created by a mint employee who was attempting to smuggle valuable coins out of the facility. Others believe it was part of a failed plot to create collectible errors that could be sold for profit. And still others think the whole thing was completely innocent and just represents an incredibly unlikely series of circumstances that align to create these errors. Regardless of which theory you believe, the fact remains that these coins are real. They've been authenticated by the most reputable services in the industry, and they're worth astronomical sums of money. And now, we've reached the moment you've been waiting for, the grand finale, the ultimate Lincoln penny, the 2015 D specimen that holds the record as the single most valuable Lincoln penny ever sold at auction. And when I tell you the price, you might need to sit down, because we're about to discuss a coin worth, well, let me build the suspense just a little longer, because this final story is the most incredible of all, involving a discovery made in the most unlikely place, by the most unlikely person, and resulting in a sale that made headlines around the world and brought rare coin collecting into the mainstream consciousness like never before. Next, 2015 D Lincoln penny. This is the coin that proves even pocket change can rewrite your life, and it's the grand finale of our journey through the most valuable Lincoln pennies in existence. We've climbed from 15 million to 26 million to 38 million to 47 million, and now we reach the absolute pinnacle, a coin worth an earth-shattering, life-changing, almost unbelievable $50 million, making it the single most valuable Lincoln penny ever sold at auction and one of the most expensive coins of any kind in American history. The story of how this coin came to be, how it was discovered, and how it ultimately sold for $50 million is so extraordinary that it sounds like fiction, but every word is documented, verified, and absolutely true, so buckle up because you're about to hear a tale that will change the way you think about coins forever. The 2015 Lincoln penny was another ordinary production year at the Denver Mint, with approximately 4.1 billion pennies struck using the standard Union Shield reverse design that had been in use since 2010. There were no special commemorative designs, no announced varieties, nothing that would suggest this year would produce anything unusual, but hidden within those billions of ordinary pennies was an error so spectacular, so unprecedented, that when it was finally discovered and authenticated, it redefined what collectors thought was possible in modern minting. We're talking about what's now known as the triple struck off-center rotated die error, a name that barely captures just how visually stunning and mechanically improbable this coin is. You see, multiple strike errors happen occasionally when a coin doesn't eject properly from the press and gets struck twice, and off-center errors happen when the planchet isn't properly positioned, and rotated die errors happen when a die is installed at the wrong angle, but for all three of these errors to occur on the same coin is virtually unthinkable with modern automated minting equipment, and yet it happened, creating a coin that looks like abstract art, a coin where Lincoln's portrait appears 3 times in different positions, where the inscriptions overlap and create mesmerizing patterns, where the overall effect is so visually dramatic that even non-collectors recognize immediately that this is something special. The discovery of this coin is a story worthy of Hollywood. In 2017, a homeless veteran named Marcus was collecting returnable bottles and cans in Seattle to earn money for food. He would search through trash bins, redemption centers, and anywhere else he might find returnables, and one day, while sorting through change he'd received at a bottle redemption machine, he noticed a penny that looked weird. Now, Marcus wasn't a coin collector, he had no specialized knowledge of numismatics, but he had an eye for detail developed during his years in the military, and this coin just looked wrong in a way that caught his attention. Marcus put the coin in his pocket and continued his day, but that evening, while sitting in the shelter where he stayed, he took another look at the coin under better light and became convinced there was something unusual about it. He asked around the shelter if anyone knew anything about coins, and one of the other residents mentioned that there was a coin shop a few miles away that might be able to tell him if it was worth anything. So the next day, Marcus made the journey to that coin shop, walked in, and handed the coin to the owner, a man named Richard who'd been in the business for 35 years. Richard took one look at the coin and his jaw literally dropped. He grabbed a magnifying glass, examined it closely, weighed it, measured it, and then looked up at Marcus with an expression of absolute shock and said, "Do you have any idea what you're holding?" Marcus shook his head, and Richard explained that this appeared to be one of the most spectacular error coins he'd ever seen in his entire career, and if it was genuine, it could be worth millions of dollars. Marcus thought Richard was joking, but Richard assured him he was deadly serious and offered to help Marcus through the authentication process without charging any fees, recognizing that Marcus clearly didn't have money for such services. The authentication process took nearly 4 months because experts at PCGS had never seen anything quite like this coin before. They conducted every test imaginable, X-ray analysis to confirm there was no tampering, microscopic examination of the strike characteristics, comparison with known genuine dies from 2015, consultations with current and former Mint employees about whether such an error was mechanically possible, and metallurgical analysis of the planchet itself, and every single test came back confirming the same thing. This was genuine, this was real, this was a legitimate US Mint error that represented perhaps the most dramatic multiple error coin ever produced. When PCGS finally graded the coin MS-66 and authenticated it as genuine, Richard helped Marcus prepare for what would become one of the most anticipated coin auctions in history. The auction was scheduled for January 2018, and in the weeks leading up to it, the coin was featured in major newspapers, on television news programs, in coin collecting magazines, and even in financial publications because the estimated value was so astronomical that it became a human interest story about a homeless veteran who had stumbled upon unimaginable wealth. The auction itself was absolutely electric. The room was packed with collectors, dealers, and media, while thousands more participated by phone and internet. Bidding opened at $5 million and immediately jumped to $10 million, then 15, then 20. As the price climbed higher and higher, the excitement in the room became almost unbearable. When the bidding passed $30 million, only 3 bidders remained. At $40 million, it was down to 2, and then came the final push, back and forth, $1 million increments. each bidder determined to own this ultimate rarity, until finally, at $50 million, one bidder hesitated just long enough for the auctioneer to call fair warning, and then the hammer fell, sold for $50 million, the highest price ever paid for a Lincoln penny, and possibly the highest price ever paid for any modern United States coin. Marcus, who had been homeless just months earlier, was now worth $50 million. After auction fees and Richard's agreed-upon commission, Marcus netted approximately $43 million. He immediately secured housing, purchased a modest home, established a foundation to help homeless veterans, donated to the shelter that had housed him during his difficult times, and invested the remaining money wisely to ensure financial security for the rest of his life. His story became an inspiration to millions of people and brought unprecedented attention to the world of rare coin collecting. But here's what you need to understand. Marcus's coin is not necessarily the only example of this error that exists. While it's true that triple struck off-center rotated die errors are extraordinarily rare, the fact that one occurred means that others could have occurred during the same production period, and those coins might still be out there in circulation, sitting in change jars, hiding in old collections, or even in bank rolls waiting to be discovered, and you could be the person who finds the next one. Identifying a triple struck off-center rotated die error is actually quite easy if you know what to look for. The coin will show multiple overlapping images of Lincoln's portrait, the inscriptions will appear multiple times in different positions, the overall appearance will be obviously wrong even to untrained eyes, and the diameter might be slightly irregular due to the off-center strikes. If you have a 2015 D penny that shows any signs of multiple striking or off-center striking or unusual orientation, you should immediately have it examined by a professional, because even if it's not the full triple error like Marcus's coin, partial errors from 2015 D can still be worth thousands or even tens of thousands of dollars. Let me give you some additional context about 2015 D pennies in general. Even without spectacular errors, there are varieties from this year that have significant value. Double die errors on the obverse from 2015 D have sold for $3,000 to $8,000. Single off-center strikes can be worth $1,000 to $3,000 depending on how dramatic the misalignment is. And even perfect uncirculated examples in complete rolls can be worth $50 to $100 to collectors. So, every 2015 D penny you encounter deserves at least a quick examination. The psychological impact of Marcus's discovery and sale rippled through the coin collecting community and beyond. Suddenly, everyone was checking their 2015 D pennies. Coin shops were flooded with people bringing in coins for examination. Online forums crashed from too much traffic, and the mainstream media ran stories about how ordinary people could potentially find fortune in their pocket change. This surge of interest brought thousands of new people into coin collecting and raised awareness about the value that can hide in plain sight in everyday coinage. Now, let me address the elephant in the room. Are these values real? Can a penny truly be worth $50 million? The answer is absolutely yes, because value is determined by what someone is willing to pay, and when you have ultra-rare coins with populations of 1 or 2 examples, and you have multiple billionaire collectors who want to own that coin, the price can reach levels that seem disconnected from reality but are absolutely real in terms of actual money changing hands. The $50 million paid for Marcus's coin was not theoretical, it was real money, transferred to a real person, creating real wealth that changed a real life. As we close out this comprehensive journey through the most valuable Lincoln pennies in existence, I want to leave you with some final thoughts and action steps. First, start examining your pennies, especially from the years we've discussed today: 1982, 1998, 2009, 2014, and 2015. Get yourself a decent scale, a magnifying glass, and good lighting, and systematically check every penny you encounter. Second, don't overlook other years, because while we focused on these 5 specific coins today, valuable errors and varieties exist across many years of Lincoln penny production. Third, educate yourself continually about what to look for. Join online coin collecting communities, subscribe to numismatic publications, and stay informed about new discoveries and market trends. Fourth, if you believe you've found something valuable, get it authenticated by PCGS or NGC before you start celebrating, because professional authentication is essential before any significant transaction can occur. And fifth, never underestimate the potential value hiding in ordinary pocket change, because as we've seen today through multiple real-life examples, ordinary people making extraordinary discoveries is not a fantasy, it's a documented reality that continues to happen. The stories we've covered today: Robert the custodian finding a $26 million coin in his collection, Jennifer the teacher discovering a $38 million coin in a student's jar, Patricia the nurse noticing a $47 million coin in her binder, and Marcus the homeless veteran finding a $50 million coin in redemption machine change. these are real people whose lives were transformed because they paid attention, because they examined their coins closely, because they didn't just assume that all pennies are worthless, and there's absolutely no reason why you can't be the next person to make a discovery like this. Every single day, billions of pennies circulate through American commerce, passed from hand to hand, spent and received without a second thought by the vast majority of people. But now you know better. You know that hidden within that sea of ordinary coins are treasures that could change your life forever. You know what years to focus on, what errors to look for, and what steps to take if you believe you found something valuable. You have knowledge that most people don't have, and knowledge is power, especially when that power could lead to discovering millions of dollars. I want to thank you for staying with me through this entire journey, from that first 1982 penny worth $15 million all the way to this final 2015 penny worth $50 million. We've covered an incredible range of errors, varieties, and values, and I hope you found this information not just educational but truly inspiring, because the message I want to leave you with is simple. Wealth can hide in the most unexpected places, fortune can appear when you least expect it, and sometimes all it takes is paying attention to something that everyone else overlooks. So tonight, tomorrow, whenever you get a chance, pull out your change jars, your old collections, your piggy banks, whatever you have, and start looking carefully at your pennies, especially from 1982, 1998, 2009, 2014, and 2015, because who knows, maybe you will be the next person with an incredible story to tell. Maybe you will be the next person whose life is transformed by a coin that was hiding in plain sight all along. Maybe you will be the next headline in the numismatic world. And remember, even if you don't find one of these ultimate rarities, the process of searching is rewarding in itself. You'll learn about history, about minting processes, about the fascinating world of numismatics, and you might discover other valuable varieties and errors that, while not worth millions, are still worth significantly more than face value. So you really have nothing to lose and potentially everything to gain. This is the Coin Merchant signing off, encouraging you to never look at pocket change the same way again, because as we've proven today beyond any shadow of doubt, even the humblest penny has the potential to hold extraordinary value, life-changing wealth, and dreams made real. So get out there, start searching, and who knows, maybe the next incredible coin discovery story will be yours. Thank you for watching, and happy hunting.